What's going on? I just finished watching Gojiman's Gojiboy's Why Do Vegans Develop Gluten Issues video, his most recent video, and as usually he completely fails to hit the most important point when it comes to all of these gluten issues. So yeah, maybe they're gonna teach him when he finally applies for the PhD in nutritional science, which he wants to do this year. But until then, I thought I'd put out some real information for people who are genuinely interested into the whole subject of gluten, the gluten hysteria, the gluten issues essentially. So let's get started. Gluten is going to cause troubles in your small intestine if it reaches your small intestines undigested. That is already the main message here. Gluten is a protein that is formed in a very specific, very certain way out of very specific amino acids, a very specific blend, you should say, of amino acids. Now, when they touch your the mucus layer, the fine little mucus layer of your small intestines, they're gonna cause trouble there. They're gonna cause inflammation. They're gonna cause the ripping apart of your small tight junctions, and essentially all the associated diseases with leaky gut, all the celiac disease, the irritable bowel syndrome, and whatnot, whatever all they are called by the doctors, which enables them to make more money off of these diseases, essentially. So the question really is, how can we prevent the intact gluten protein molecule to hit these small intestines? Now, obviously, if you have a functional stomach, you should digest proteins there, right? Isn't that the case? Of course, you should digest proteins there. You've got a lot of proteases in your stomach, the trypsines, the pepsines. You've got ideally a very strong stomach acid, a very strong hydrochloric acid with a pH in between 1 and 2. And under these conditions, these enzymes work really efficiently and really well. And they break down all sorts of proteins, also gluten, into their constituents, the amino acids. Now, once gluten is broken down into amino acids, downstream of your stomach, the small intestines, they're not gonna notice whether these amino acids were once gluten or whether they came from the protein of meats or whether they came from the proteins of eggs or the proteins of vegetables, whatever you name it, whatever you ate, basically. If your stomach acidity is high enough and you simply digest this stuff into its constituents, it's not gonna make any problems downstream. You're simply gonna take up those amino acids. The bloodstream is going to deliver them to your system and you can build your own tissue from them. This is the ideal state. Unfortunately, this ideal state is not very prevalent in modern society anymore because our stomach acidity is under heavy attack. First and foremost by vegan diets. Of course, Gojiman can't tell you that because he, greatly is a propagator of the vegan agenda. But the fact of the matter is that, for example, fruits are very, in the long run, detrimental for the acidity of your digestive environment. Why? Because 95% of all fruit, digests in an alkaline environment. So if you pound fruit all day, let's say you go frugivore for a month or so, I bet you the same person after 1 month is going to be much more gluten sensitive, quote unquote, than he was before this month. The reason being that these fruits, progressively lowered the, efficiency of the stomach acid. They simply weakened the stomach acid to a degree that all of these, proteases and stuff like that do not work as efficiently anymore as they did before. And undigested proteins reach the small intestines. And of course, also undigested gluten proteins reach the small intestines. Some of these proteins are more detrimental to your health and some are less. Now, gluten happens to be one of those that are very detrimental to your health when they reach the lining of your small intestines and when they become systemic, which can happen as well if you have a severe case of leaky gut, then these molecules even pass into your bloodstream and then they cause havoc there. And this is where, all these long-term food allergies and stuff like that have their root causes. It all starts in the stomach with the stomach acidity. So essentially, the main take-home message from this little discussion here, I guess, is do not let your digestive environment become too alkaline. Keep up your stomach acidity. Keep your iron stomach. What we've discussed here is also the reason why all gluten sensitivities, quote unquote, are acquired. No person is born with a gluten sensitivity, or very few are. A lot of gluten sensitive people can remember the days in their, young adulthood when they smashed pasta and rice and pizza and lasagna and whatnot every day, and they enjoyed it pretty much because it's very tasty, obviously, and they didn't have any digestive problems whatsoever with it, because back in that days they still had this digestive acidity to simply break down the gluten, and when it's broken down, it doesn't cause any issues. Now, why do grains contain gluten? This is simply a self-defense mechanism by grains to limit the amount of grazing enemies these plants have. Now, by synthesizing gluten from their amino acids, they have reduced their grazing enemies essentially to birds. Okay, birds still have a strong enough digestive environment to even break down all the anti-nutrients that come with grains, which are in the bran and all this stuff. Is also the reason why, in ancient cultures you rarely see the addition of whole grains into the diet. You're not gonna find brown rice in China because they are already smart enough to understand that in the bran of the rice there is a lot of anti-nutrients, although maybe there are also a lot of nutrients there, especially minerals and vitamins and some certain oils. It pays off a lot more to remove the bran and keep those anti-nutrients away, to at least get the proper assimilation of the starch and the proteins of the grain corn itself. So really, all this gluten issue, the gluten thing, is a self-defense mechanism of the wheat family, and the associated, grains there, these grasses. It's basically a self-defense mechanism. However, if we process them properly, if we remove the bran, we're gonna turn the whole thing into flour, then we're gonna add water, we're gonna mix it, then we're gonna cook it. Via all these processing, maybe you even ferment it, which would actually be the smartest way to process grains. You can get rid of a lot of these anti-nutrients, but of course the gluten still remains. Okay, to get rid of the gluten issue, you gotta have that strong digestive acidity, to simply break down the protein. If you have that, it's not gonna be a lot of a problem in your digestive tract. Now, that doesn't mean that grains are an ideal food for us humans, because in fact they are not. We see that the more civilized a society is, the more the grain consumption increases. This is not only true for our modern society today, but it was also true for the ancient Egyptians, it was true for the South American civilizations, and it was also true for the Romans, and so on and so forth, for the Chinese civilizations. So it's really a civilization heavy thing, these grains, simply because you cannot feed so many people with high quality animal products at the same time. This is simply not possible. High quality animal products in such societies are reserved for the very wealthy and high status people. So yeah, so much for that. Why does Gojiman not talk about all of this? Now, very obviously because this would go against the vegan agenda, and this is of course something that Gojiman promotes heavily. Again, you eat a lot of fruits, you eat a lot of these vegetables, a lot of these alkalinely digesting foods. You're gonna turn your digestive environment alkaline over time, and you're gonna lose the ability to properly digest and assimilate proteins and amino acids. So this is something you don't want. Gojiman, what's up here with that? What's your opinion on that? Would like to know, would like to hear that. Another thing that I find quite interesting personally is his title. He titles it, "Why Do Vegans Develop Gluten Issues?" In the whole video, he doesn't really talk about the fact that this is mainly a vegan issue, because vegans tend to be the most subjective to this alkaline digestive environment, simply because of the foods they eat. They do not eat all these meats, these animal products which really trigger the acidity stimulus inside of your stomach. So they are more susceptible to this kind of diseases, of course, and this is, of course, also the main reason why 90% of them at some point stop the diet because of some sort of digestive issues. But he knows about it. He knows about it, obviously, because otherwise, why would he title the video, "Why Do Vegans Develop Gluten Issues?" Obviously, he recognizes that this is especially a vegan problem, but he's not gonna he's not gonna talk about the main, the main reason, the main reasoning behind this thing, the main mechanism behind this thing. So, yeah. Anyway, I hope, I could bring this information to someone out there who really needs it. And yeah, bye.